For a very long time, we measured a country's success with one main number, gross domestic product, or GDP. This number tells us the total value of all the goods and services a country produces in a year. It is a measure of economic output. A high GDP suggests a bustling economy with lots of money changing hands. It was simple, easy to compare, and seemed to make sense. If a country was rich, we assumed its people must be doing well. We looked at the world through a lens that saw wealth as the ultimate goal and the primary indicator of a nation's well-being. This perspective shaped global policy for decades. However, this way of thinking has a major flaw. Money is not the only thing that matters in life. Imagine a country with a booming oil industry. Its GDP could be very high, but what if that wealth is held by only a few people? What if the average person cannot see a doctor, cannot get a good education, and does not live a long life? Is that country truly successful? This question started to bother economists and policymakers. They realized that a nation's bank account did not tell the full story about the lives of its citizens. A rising GDP could hide deep problems within a society. This is where a new idea began to take shape. We needed a better yardstick, one that measured people, not just money. We needed a tool that could capture the true quality of life for the average person. It would need to look into the classrooms, the hospitals, and the homes of ordinary people. The goal was to shift the focus from national income to human well-being. The world was ready for a more human-centered approach to understanding development and progress across the globe. This shift led to the creation of the Human Development Index, or HDI. Developed by the United Nations, the HDI offers a more complete picture of a country's development. The Human Development Index, often shortened to HDI, is a single number that gives us a snapshot of a country's progress. It was first launched in 1990 by the United Nations Development Programme, or UNDP. The brilliant minds behind it, including Pakistani economist Mahbub-ul-Haq and Indian economist Amartya Sen, wanted to change the conversation about development. They argued that the real goal of development should be to expand human choices and capabilities. The HDI was their tool to make this new way of thinking practical and easy to understand for everyone, from world leaders to ordinary citizens. The purpose of the HDI is to provide a more holistic measure of development than just looking at economic growth. GDP per capita tells us the average income, but it doesn't tell us how that income affects people's lives. The HDI was designed to fix this problem by looking at what really matters for a good life. It shifts the focus from the means of development, which is money, to the ends of development, which are well-lived human lives. It asks a simple but profound question: are people in a country able to lead long, healthy, and creative lives? The HDI is presented as a score between 0 and 1. A score closer to 1 indicates a higher level of human development, while a score closer to 0 indicates a lower level. This simple scale makes it incredibly easy to compare different countries or to track a single country's progress over time. Instead of just saying a country is rich or poor, we can say it has very high or low human development. This language helps us understand that development is a multifaceted concept that goes far beyond just economic statistics. Ultimately, the HDI was created to challenge the long-held belief that GDP was the only number that mattered. The Human Development Index is built upon 3 fundamental dimensions or pillars of human life. The first pillar is having a long and healthy life. This is the most basic component of human well-being. Without good health, it is difficult to enjoy anything else that life has to offer, such as getting an education or earning a living. The HDI measures this dimension using a single, powerful indicator: life expectancy at birth. This statistic tells us the average number of years a newborn infant can expect to live if current mortality patterns were to stay the same throughout their life. A higher life expectancy suggests better healthcare, nutrition, and public sanitation. The second pillar of the HDI is knowledge. Being educated and informed gives people the tools they need to make choices and pursue their goals. It opens up opportunities and allows for greater participation in society. The HDI captures this dimension using 2 separate indicators to get a fuller picture. The first is the mean years of schooling, which is the average number of years of education received by people aged 25 and older. The second is the expected years of schooling, which predicts the total number of years of schooling that a child of school-entering age can expect to receive in their lifetime. The third and final pillar is having a decent standard of living. While money isn't everything, having enough of it is necessary to meet basic needs like food, housing, and clothing. A sufficient income provides access to a range of goods and services that make a comfortable life possible. The HDI measures this dimension using gross national income, or GNI, per capita. GNI is similar to GDP but also includes income from abroad. This figure is adjusted for purchasing power parity, or PPP, which accounts for differences in the cost of living between countries, giving us a more accurate comparison of living standards. These three pillars, health, education and income, are the core of what the HDI measures. They are considered the essential building blocks for a life of dignity and opportunity. By combining them, the HDI provides a balanced view that avoids overemphasizing any single aspect of development. It recognizes that a truly developed nation is not just a wealthy one, but one where people are healthy, educated, and able to live a comfortable life. This comprehensive approach is what makes the HDI such a powerful and widely respected tool for measuring human progress. Calculating the Human Development Index might sound complicated, but the basic idea is quite simple. The process involves turning the raw data for each of the three dimensions into a score between 0 and 1. This step is called normalization. To do this, the creators of the HDI set minimum and maximum values or goalposts for each indicator. The minimum value represents a very low level of achievement, while the maximum value represents a high target that countries can aspire to. A country's performance on an indicator is then measured by its position relative to these goalposts. For example, let's look at life expectancy. The minimum goalpost is set at 20 years, and the maximum is set at 85 years. If a country has a life expectancy of 75 years, its index score for health is calculated based on how far it is between 20 and 85. A similar process is used for the education and income indicators. For education, the mean years of schooling and expected years of schooling are each converted into an index and then averaged together. For income, GNI per capita is also converted to a score between 0 and 1, using a logarithmic scale to reflect that an extra dollar means much more to a poor person than to a rich one. Once each of the three dimensions, health, education and income, has its own index score between 0 and 1, the final step is to combine them. In the past, the HDI was calculated using a simple arithmetic mean, where you would just add the three scores and divide by 3. However, this method was updated to use a geometric mean. This might sound technical, but the reason for the change is important. A geometric mean ensures that a poor performance in one dimension is not fully compensated for by a strong performance in another. This means a country must do well across all three areas to get a high HDI score. This calculation method results in a single, comprehensive number for each country. This number, the HDI score, summarizes a vast amount of information about the well-being of its people in an easily digestible format. It allows for direct and meaningful comparisons between countries with very different economic and social systems. The careful, step-by-step process ensures that the final score is a balanced and fair reflection of a country's overall human development, giving equal importance to a long life, access to knowledge, and a decent standard of living. To make the HDI scores even easier to understand and compare, the United Nations Development Program groups countries into 4 distinct categories or tiers of human development. This classification system helps us quickly grasp where a country stands on the global development spectrum. The highest tier is very high human development. Countries in this category have achieved excellent outcomes in health, education, and income. Their citizens typically enjoy long lives, high levels of education, and a very comfortable standard of living. As of the latest reports, a country needs an HDI score of 0.800 or above to fall into this group. The next category is high human development. These countries are also doing very well, but they may lag behind the top group in one or more of the three dimensions. Their HDI scores generally fall between 0.700 and 0.799. Nations in this tier have made significant progress and provide a good quality of life for most of their citizens, but there is still room for improvement to reach the very top levels of human development. Many emerging economies and rapidly developing nations find themselves in this particular category as they continue to improve their social and economic infrastructure for their populations. The third tier is medium human development. Countries in this group have HDI scores ranging from 0.550 to 0.699. These nations are often in a transitional phase. They have made some progress in improving life expectancy, schooling, and income, but they still face significant challenges. For example, while access to primary education might be widespread, the quality could be low or access to higher education might be limited. India, for instance, is currently classified in this category, reflecting its complex mix of progress and persistent developmental hurdles that it continues to work on. Finally, the fourth category is low human development, which includes countries with an HDI score below 0.550. These nations face the most severe development challenges. They often struggle with low life expectancy due to poor healthcare, widespread disease, or conflict. Educational attainment is typically very low and extreme poverty is common. These are the countries that require the most international attention and support to help their people escape cycles of poverty and deprivation. This four-tier system provides a clear and useful framework for understanding the vast differences in human well-being across the world. Looking at real-world examples helps to bring the Human Development Index to life. At the very top of the rankings, we consistently find countries like Switzerland, Norway, and Iceland. Switzerland held the top spot with an HDI of 0.967. These countries share common traits. They have universal healthcare systems that lead to very high life expectancies, often over 83 years. Their education systems are world-class, with high rates of university attendance and long expected years of schooling. They also have strong, stable economies that provide a high standard of living for their citizens. In the high human development category, we find countries like China, with an HDI of 0.788. This shows the remarkable progress China has made in recent decades, lifting millions out of poverty and significantly improving life expectancy and education levels. However, its GNI per capita and years of schooling are still catching up to the top tier. Moving to the medium human development group, we can look at a country like India, which had an HDI of 0.644. India's case is a powerful example of the HDI's usefulness. While its economy has grown rapidly, making it one of the largest in the world, its HDI score reflects the ongoing challenges. Life expectancy is improving but is still lower than in high-income countries. While more children are going to school, the average years of schooling for adults remain relatively low. This shows that economic growth alone does not automatically translate into high human development for the entire population. At the other end of the spectrum are countries like South Sudan and Somalia. South Sudan had one of the lowest HDI scores at 0.381. These countries often face severe challenges, including political instability, conflict, poor governance, and environmental crises. This leads to extremely low life expectancies, very limited access to education, and widespread poverty. The HDI starkly highlights the immense gap in well-being between the most and least developed countries, underscoring the urgent need for global cooperation and targeted aid. One of the greatest strengths of the Human Development Index is its ability to provide a more holistic and balanced view of a country's progress. Before the HDI, GDP was the king of all indicators. This often led to a narrow focus on economic growth, sometimes at the expense of social well-being or the environment. The HDI changed this by putting people at the center of the development debate. It forces us to consider whether economic gains are actually translating into better lives for citizens. A country might have a high GNI per capita, but if its life expectancy is low, the HDI will reflect this imbalance. The HDI is also an incredibly useful tool for governments and policymakers. By breaking down development into health, education, and income, it helps leaders identify specific areas that need more attention and resources. For example, if a country's HDI is being pulled down by low education scores, the government knows it needs to invest more in its schools and universities. The index can be used to set national priorities, track progress over time, and hold governments accountable for their performance in improving the well-being of their citizens. It provides a clear and measurable goal for development policy. Furthermore, the HDI is a powerful tool for global comparison and advocacy. The annual Human Development Report, which publishes the rankings, receives worldwide media attention. This shines a spotlight on the vast inequalities that exist across the globe. It can stimulate a healthy sense of competition among nations to improve their rankings, which can lead to positive policy changes. For international organizations and aid agencies, the HDI helps to identify which countries are most in need of assistance, allowing them to direct their resources where they can make the biggest difference in people's lives. Finally, the HDI helps to highlight internal inequalities within countries. While the main HDI provides a national average, the UNDP also publishes other indices, like the Inequality Adjusted HDI or IHDI. The IHDI shows how much a country's human development is lost due to inequality. For example, two countries could have the same HDI score, but one might have a much lower IHDI score, indicating that its development gains are not being shared equally among its population. This provides a much deeper understanding of the challenges a country faces, and emphasizes that true development must be inclusive. Despite its many strengths, the Human Development Index is not a perfect measure of human well-being. It is important to understand its limitations. One of the most significant criticisms is that the standard HDI is a national average and does not account for inequality within a country. A high HDI score can hide large gaps between the rich and the poor, men and women, or different ethnic groups. A country could have a high average life expectancy, but this might mask the fact that marginalized communities have much shorter lifespans. The creation of the Inequality-Adjusted HDI or IHDI was a direct response to this valid criticism. Another major limitation is that the HDI does not include several important aspects of human life. For instance, it does not directly measure political freedoms, human rights, or personal security. A country could have a high HDI but still have an authoritarian government that suppresses dissent. Similarly, the index does not measure gender equality. While women's health and education contribute to the overall score, the HDI does not capture specific issues like gender-based violence or unequal political representation. To address this, the UNDP also publishes a separate Gender Inequality Index, or GII. The HDI has also been criticized for what it leaves out regarding environmental sustainability. A country could achieve a high HDI score by pursuing economic activities that deplete its natural resources and cause significant pollution. This model of development is not sustainable in the long run, as it compromises the well-being of future generations. Critics argue that a true measure of development should incorporate indicators of environmental health. The UNDP has acknowledged this and is exploring ways to better integrate sustainability into its development framework, including the Planetary Pressures Adjusted HDI or PHDI. Finally, some argue that the three dimensions of the HDI are too narrow. Human well-being is a complex and subjective experience that is difficult to capture with just three indicators. The index does not measure things like social cohesion, community engagement, or mental health and happiness. While life expectancy, education, and income are undoubtedly crucial, they do not tell the whole story of what makes a life fulfilling. The creators of the HDI acknowledge this, emphasizing that it is a summary measure of basic human development, not a comprehensive measure of all aspects of human happiness. Today, on August 12, 2025, the conversation around global development is more nuanced than ever before, and the HDI remains at the heart of it. Despite its limitations, the index is still one of the most powerful and influential tools we have for understanding human progress. Its greatest contribution was shifting the world's focus away from the simple and often misleading measure of GDP. It successfully established the principle that the true wealth of a nation lies in the health, education, and opportunities of its people. This fundamental shift in perspective is its most enduring legacy. Recent HDI reports have highlighted some worrying trends. Progress has stalled or even reversed in some parts of the world due to a combination of factors, including pandemics, conflicts, and the escalating climate crisis. The latest data shows a growing divergence in development, with the richest countries rebounding while the poorest are left further behind. This underscores the fragility of human development and the urgent need for global solidarity and action. The HDI provides the critical data we need to see these trends clearly and to advocate for policies that can get us back on track toward a more equitable world. Looking to the future, the HDI will continue to evolve. The United Nations is actively working to address its criticisms by developing complementary indices. The Inequality-Adjusted HDI, the Gender Inequality Index, and the Planetary Pressures Adjusted HDI are all attempts to paint a more complete and honest picture of development. These newer measures push us to think not just about average achievements, but about who is being left behind and at what cost to our planet. The future of measuring progress will likely involve using a dashboard of indicators, with the HDI as the central pillar. In conclusion, while no single number can ever fully capture the richness and complexity of human life, the Human Development Index matters more than ever. It provides a vital counterbalance to purely economic measures of success. It reminds us that development is ultimately about people. It challenges us to build societies where everyone has the chance to live a long, healthy, and creative life. As we face the great challenges of the 21st century, the simple but profound message of the HDI, to put people first, is a guidepost we cannot afford to ignore.